Hi, Grace kids. Happy Wednesday. It's Maria, and I'm glad that you have joined me today. Today, we are going to look at a little bit of history to help us in our current challenges. Now, I don't know about all of you, but this new change of scenery, this staying at home, is starting to get a little bit challenging. Now, I don't mind doing it, and I know that it's the best thing to do right now, but that doesn't mean that it's not hard. I miss my friends, and I miss my school. I miss my teachers. There's a lot of things in the whole outside world that I miss not being able to do. And I know that the more and more that I need to study for school, the more it gets kind of challenging, because now my school and my home and my playtime is all in the same place. And so sometimes my brain gets really confused about what time it is. Is it time for me to do my chores at home? Is it time for me to do my schoolwork? Or is it time for me to relax and to play cards with my mom and my dad or my brother? This can be really challenging. Sometimes at Sunday school and at church, we sit together and we'll talk about all of the things that we're grateful for, the things that we have joy for. But Sunday school and church is also a place where we can talk about the things that are really hard, the things that are making us sad, and some of the challenges in our life. There are adults, trusted adults at church, who would love to hear your questions and your challenges. And God likes to hear those things too. God knows that life is hard. The adults in your life know that life can be hard too. They've been there. And so this week, I'm going to invite you to pick up the phone and maybe talk to someone you haven't talked to in a while. Maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's an elderly neighbor, maybe it's a grandparent. Call them up. Just to chat. You can tell them all the things that you're really excited about right now, and then you can tell them all the things that you're struggling with right now. What's really hard? What's challenging? And you might even ask them some questions like, did they ever have to stay at home and weren't able to go to school? And ask them during that time when they couldn't go to work or to school, what they did to pass the time to continue to grow and to learn. Our story today is one of my absolute favorites. It is called Mike Mulligan and His Steam Shovel, and the story and pictures are by Virginia Lee Burton. Mike Mulligan had a steam shovel, a beautiful red steam shovel. Her name was Mary Ann. Mike Mulligan was very proud of Mary Ann. He always said that she could dig as much in one day as 100 men could dig in a week. But he had never been quite sure that this is true. Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann began digging together for years and years. Mike Mulligan took such good care of Mary Ann, she never grew old. It was Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann and some others who dug the great canals for big boats to sail through. It was Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann and some others who lowered the hills and straightened the curves to make the long highways and automobiles. It was Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann and some others who smoothed out the ground and filled in the holes to make the landing fields for the airplanes. And it was Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann and some others who dug the deep holes for the cellars of the tall skyscrapers in the big cities. When people used to stop and watch them, Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann used to dig a little faster and a little better. The more people stopped, the faster and better they dug. Some days they would keep as many as 37 trucks busy taking away the dirt that they had dug. Then along came the new gasoline shovels and the new electric shovels and the new diesel motor shovels and took all the jobs away from the steam shovels. Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann were very sad. All the other steam shovels were being sold for junk or left out in old gravel pits to rust and fall apart. Mike loved Mary Ann. He couldn't do that to her. He had taken such good care of her that she could still dig as much in a day as 100 men could dig in a week. At least he thought she could, but he wasn't quite sure. Everywhere they went, the new gas shovels and the new electric shovels and the new diesel motor shovels had all the jobs. No one wanted Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann anymore. Then one day, Mike read in a newspaper that the town of Popperville was going to build a new town hall. "We're going to dig the cellar of that town hall," said Mike to Mary Ann, and off they started. They left the canals and the railroads and the highways and the airports and the big cities where no one wanted them anymore and went away out in the country. They crawled along slowly up the hills and down the hills till they came to the little town of Popperville. When they got there, they found that the selectmen were just deciding who should dig the cellar for the new town hall. Mike Mulligan spoke to Henry B. Swap, one of the selectmen. "I heard," he said, "that you are going to build a new town hall. Mary Ann and I will dig the cellar for you in just one day." "What?" said Henry B. Swap. "Dig a cellar in a day? It would take 100 men at least a week to dig the cellar for our new town hall." "Sure," said Mike, "but Mary Ann can dig as much in a day as 100 men can dig in a week." Though he had never been quite sure that this was true, then he added, "If we can't do it, you won't have to pay us." Henry B. Swap thought that this would be an easy way to get part of the cellar dug for nothing, so he smiled in a rather mean way and gave the job of digging the cellar of the new town hall to Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann. They started in early the next morning, just as the sun was coming up. Soon a little boy came along. "Do you think you will finish by sundown?" he said to Mike Mulligan. "Sure," said Mike. "If you stay and watch us, we'll always work faster and better when someone is watching us." So the little boy stayed to watch. Then Mrs. McGillicuddy, Henry B. Swap, and the town constable came over to see what was happening, and they stayed to watch. Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann dug a little faster and a little better. This gave the little boy a good idea. He ran off and told the postman with the morning mail, the telegraph boy on his bicycle, the milkman with his cart and horse, the doctor on his way home, and the farmer and his family coming into town for the day. And they all stopped and stayed to watch. That made Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann dig a little faster and a little better. They finished the first corner neat and square, but the sun was getting higher. Clang, clang, clang! The fire department arrived. They had seen the smoke and thought there was a fire. When the little boy said, "Why don't you stay and watch?" So the fire department of Popperville stayed to watch Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann. When they heard the fire engine, the children in the school across the street couldn't keep their eyes on their lessons. The teacher called a long recess and the whole school came out to watch. That made Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann dig a little faster and a little better. They finished the second corner neat and square, but the sun was right up in the top of the sky. Now the girl who answers the telephone called up the next towns of Bangerville and Bopperville and Kipperville and Copperville and told them what was happening in Popperville. All the people came over to see if Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel could dig the cellar in just one day. The more people came, the faster Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann dug. But they would have to hurry. They were only halfway through and the sun was beginning to go down. They finished the third corner, neat and square. Never had Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann had so many people watch them. Never had they dug so fast and so well, and never had the sun seemed to go down so fast. "Hurry, Mike Mulligan, hurry, hurry," shouted the little boy. "There's not much more time." Dirt was flying everywhere, and the smoke and steam were so thick that people could hardly see anything. But listen. Bing, bang, crash, slam, louder and louder, faster and faster. Then suddenly it was quiet. Slowly the dirt settled down, the smoke and the steam cleared away, and there was the cellar, all finished. 4 corners neat and square, 4 walls straight down, and Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann at the bottom. And the sun was just going down behind the hill. "Hooray!" shouted the people. "Hooray for Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel. They have dug the cellar in just one day." Suddenly the little boy said, "How are they going to get out?" "That's right," said Miss McGillicuddy to Henry B. Swap. "How is he going to get his steam shovel out?" Henry B. Swap didn't answer, but he smiled in a rather mean way. Then everybody said, "How are they going to get out?" "Hi, Mike Mulligan. How are you going to get your steam shovel out?" Mike Mulligan looked around at the 4 square walls and 4 square corners and said, "We've dug so fast, we've dug so well that we've forgotten to leave a way out." Nothing like this had ever happened to Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann before, and they didn't know what to do. Nothing like this had ever happened before in Popperville. Everybody started talking at once, and everybody had a different idea, and everybody thought that his idea was the best. They talked and they talked and they argued and they fought till they were worn out, and still no one knew how to get Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann out of the cellar that they dug. Then Henry B. Swap said the job isn't finished because Mary Ann isn't out of the cellar, so Mike Mulligan won't get paid. And he smiled again in a rather mean way. Now the little boy, who had been keeping very quiet, had another good idea. He said, "Why couldn't we leave Mary Ann in the cellar and build the new town hall above her? Let her be the furnace for the new town hall, and let Mike Mulligan be the janitor. Then you wouldn't have to buy a new furnace, and we could pay Mike Mulligan for digging the cellar in just one day." "Why not?" said Henry B. Swap, and smiled in a way that was not quite so mean. "Why not?" said Miss McGillicuddy. "Why not?" said the town constable. "Why not?" said all the people. So they found a ladder and climbed down into the cellar to ask Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann. "Why not?" said Mike Mulligan. And so it was decided, and everybody was happy. They built the new town hall right over Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann. It was finished before winter. Every day the little boy goes over to see Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann, and Miss McGillicuddy takes him nice hot apple pies. As for Henry B. Swap, he spends most of his time in the cellar of the new town hall listening to the stories that Mike Mulligan has to tell and smiling in a way that isn't mean at all. Now, when you go to Popperville, be sure to go down in the cellar of the new town hall. There they'll be Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann, Mike in his rocking chair smoking his pipe, and Mary Ann beside him warming up the meetings in the new town hall. The end. Wasn't that a great book? It's one of my favorites. And believe it or not, it was first published in 1939. That was a long time ago, but there's so much in this story that reminds me of some of the situations that we're going through right now. Specifically, when they're trying to figure out how to get Mary Ann out. And all of the townspeople are saying, "We've never experienced this before." Now, what we're experiencing now, staying home and kind of being stuck inside, like Marianne is stuck inside, we feel as though nothing like this has ever happened to us before. And in this story, it takes some great ideas from this little boy and all of the townspeople really coming up with great ideas of what to do next. How can we take this challenging situation that we're experiencing right now, that we've never experienced quite like this before, and use our imaginations that God has given us to think of ways outside of the box, new ways of imagining how we spend our time and organize our time. We saw in our story today how Mike used a steam shovel that was water powered. When water is heated up, it creates steam. Maybe you've seen steam coming off of the bathtub when you fill it up with really hot water. If the steam is really hot, then it can generate power. But we also saw in our story today that there were new innovations, new ideas, and new methods of creating power. Gasoline, electric, diesel, we've got coal power and nuclear power and wind power and solar power, all of these different kinds of power to make sure that we have lights and we can be warm in the wintertime or cool in the summer when we use our air conditioning. But all of these great ideas and these new inventions of the way of using power came out of challenging times. And sometimes, like in our story today that we read about Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel Marianne, life requires us to come up with new ideas and new methods and new ways of doing things. So maybe some of you have noticed that I'm sort of in a costume today. My costume is reminiscent of a character called Rosie the Riveter. Maybe some of you have heard about her. Maybe some of you, this is the first time that you've heard that name. And if that's true, I encourage you to go look her up and see what she's all about. But I'll tell you a little snippet now. She was a character that became famous during World War II. Now, during that time, women mostly stayed home and they helped raise families and cook meals, which some ladies still do today. Some guys do that today too. But most of the men in this time would go out and they would work. But because there was a war going on, the men, instead of working, they were sent to war. This left a lot of empty slots in the job market, and women decided to fill those. These women needed new ideas. They thought of new methods and new ways of living. Many of these women joined the workforce, taking the jobs that mostly men had in the past. My character, this character, Rosie the Riveter, told these women, you can do it, and encouraged them all along the way. Today, because of these new ways of living, women and men work together. In a challenging time, new ways of thinking and new ways of doing brought more togetherness in the world. The same can be true for all of us. Now, it's okay to be sad and to recognize that this time is challenging, and sometimes that bums us out, and that's okay to name. Also know, you can do it. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to check out all of the activities that I have posted on the activities page, either in the email or posted below in the Facebook post. I'll see you guys on Sunday.